So it's nice to have you moms on here. It's nice to see some new faces as well. That's really fun. Some of them are names that I am familiar with, some of them not. So it'll be fun to get to know you today. Also, please know that if you want to just be in the background and not talk, you are more than welcome to just be watching and listening. That's completely fine. But we'd love to have you join the discussion. It's always fun to do that. Christine, okay, she would like the earlier time. Okay, good. All right, so we will consider that. I think that might be a good idea to do that. I'll have to really publicize that. You'll have to share that with your friends and anybody else that you've seen on here, but I'll give you a heads up on that. But we'll consider going earlier. So today we're going to talk about poetry. I'm sort of getting a handle on what we're going to do here as this year progresses. I want to hit the Mother's University topic. I want that to be something that we do every month, so that that's something that you could study ahead of time, look into what the topic is for the month in the Mother's University, and that would be poetry for this month. But also, if you want to talk about some of the resources, some of the things that you're doing in the other areas of Well-Educated Heart for the month, we could do that as well. If you want to talk about just child rearing, training, teaching, any of that, we can do that. We've just kind of followed the spirit as we've been working these last few months. So we will continue to do that, I'm sure. But today, as we're talking about poetry, I shared with Lindsay the fact that this lovely little book came just yesterday afternoon, really late in the mail. And I have been waiting for this. I keep checking and checking and checking, and it finally came. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really happy to be able to have this to share with you. Now, obviously, we can all access this online. All of these are free, right? These books from Marlene. Or you can have it show up on your doorstep if you decide that that's how you want to receive it. And for this discussion group, I wanted to have a physical copy so I could make notes. First off, I would love to hear what you ladies think about poetry. Is this something that you already have a connection with, that you feel some strong feelings with? Is it something that you're afraid of, that you don't know very much about? How do you feel personally about poetry, about poems, about any of that?
I'll start. I'll be honest, when I first got introduced to Well-Educated Heart, I was like, poetry. Because the only thing I thought of poetry was some poetry books that my parents had that I would look through that were like Emily Dickinson and some other ones that I just never really understood. But as I started actually looking into poetry, I got sorry, I'm cooking, so don't mind the sizzling in the background. But as I started looking into some of the other resources that were available, I realized that when I was a kid, I used to open up my parents' Childcraft, the poetry and nursery rhymes Childcraft, and I would just read it and read it and read it. And I would do that in my spare time all the time growing up. And I realized that I really do have a love of poetry. I'm more of the infantile poetry lover as opposed to some of the more advanced stuff. But I personally have grown to just love it, and I've started kind of branching out into some more Longfellow and Robert Frost and things like that. But personally, I just love it. And starting back where I was with my Sugar Plum Tree and my Sing a Song of Sixpence and all of that I loved when I was a kid, really I was able to open up my heart to a lot more of the more advanced, the more adult poetry, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I wonder what you other moms think. Any other impressions about poetry? I have to say I was with Mary, it kind of scared me. Lindsay Bunting.
Yeah, I would say when I first started, it scared me too, because I would read the big pretty poems that didn't rhyme or something, and it just seemed really deep and it was going over my head. So I felt kind of silly trying to introduce it to my kids when I didn't really get it. So we started with Shel Silverstein years ago, And it's so much easier when they're goofy. I mean, we're a pretty goofy family. So if it has to do with like weird body parts and like food and stuff like that, then we were able to relate. So we think that was like our entry to poetry, was like silly stuff, and we started memorizing it. It was fun, and so it's helped me like bridge that way into like more sophisticated poetry, I think. So now I love it, like getting the more grown-up poetry, but I'm still not like probably super grown up. I still like the fun stuff that rhymes like every other line. And yeah, like my book of delights, I sit down and read that before I even read it with the kids, because it's so pretty. And I've started stopping when I see people post things on Facebook or something where I used to just like scroll past it, and it's like, I don't want to read that poem right now. I've started to stop and read it, because after I've read it, I'm glad that I did, and it really does touch my heart. But it takes some intention to go, okay, I am going to read that poem.
Yeah.
And see what it does.
But you find it's not as scary as you first thought it was, correct?
Yeah.
So far, that's been the experience.
Yeah, now I love it.
Okay, good. Anybody else want to share their thoughts? Lindsay Watkins.
It was as I was going through your assignment this week of fine poetry and thinking about when I was introduced to it, my first poet that I really ever remember is actually my mom. She always had this book that she would take with her. She would sketch things out, and in the back she would write poems. And a few years ago, she gave us a copy of all of the poems that she has written. And it's funny because I go back through it, and I bawled last night because some of them she had written shortly after my dad died, but we hadn't read them. And sadly, when she gave me the packet, I never read them until last night. So I sat there and cried through it, because she pours her heart out. Her mom and her dad, she gave both of their life sketches, but she wrote it in a poem. And so it's huge. And she's been cleaning out. It's funny because it's all just coming together this week. She's been cleaning through boxes and stuff at her house, just trying to make space for other things, or just to make space in general. And she sent me, I don't know if you can see this.
Yes.
She sent me this, and it's from when I was a little kid, and I just kind of set it out on the table when she brought it for Christmas, and now my kids are constantly reading it. And then they'll come crawling me up, and they're like, can you read me this poem? And can you read me that poem? So it's funny that it's all just coming full circle. And I mean, to me, reading other people's poetry has become, like Lindsay said, it's less daunting.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came from my mom, it was coming from a place of love and something I could connect to, because I knew who it was and I knew what she was writing about, as opposed to, Dickinson and all those that whoosh. So it just,
right. I love that.
Topic.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you. Very personal. Rachel Hyatt Holloway, I see you responding to this, so I figure you're next.
Let me unmute myself. No, that was one of the thoughts that, as I was thinking through, I'm still super duper new to all of this. But it's something that has really just been on my heart. And as I just think about poetry, that is always something I have felt a connection with my family. My grandpa and wrote tons of poetry, and my mom, and it's something that always came naturally for me, writing my feelings in poem. And a couple years ago, they found my great grandmother's purse. After she had passed away, they found her purse, and in it had been tucked away this poem about forgiveness. And she just lived a horrible, horrible life, and full of abuse and heartache and just so much sadness. But just seeing that she was able to like find peace with God. She wasn't, a member of the church. She didn't have those connections, but that she just, for me, explained forgiveness through poetry in like the most profound way. And so I feel that I'm able to make this connection with my ancestors and with, just the things that are passed down. Some of my own kids have really resonated with writing poems and can write songs and it's just, that's really natural to them. And I love that because I feel like expressing our feelings is not always an easy thing. And um but that there's sometimes when there's that thing, there's just something with poetry that has clicked for some of us. And so I feel such this family connection to those things. So I love that that Lindsay talked about that, and those really special poems from her mom, like those I'm sure are very, very cherished.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I'm a little emotional today.
Well, that's okay. These ladies know that I'm always a little bit emotional, so that's just how I run. I was going to share this with you, so it seems like a good time. This is a book that was, hand bound, stitched and everything. It's one that one of my husband's cousins put together. I typed up most of the poems and put them in a file, and then she had them all, set on the pages and whatever, and put them all together and did the hand binding and gave every one of the 27 grandchildren of this woman, my husband's grandma, a collection of her poetry. And so this is Barbara Gabbitas's poems in this lovely little, hand-bound book. And it's a treasure, and as you go through that, you find pieces of grandma here, you find parts of her heart, and you find things that were so tender to her that maybe you didn't even know about. And she's gone now, but we get to still share parts of her through this book of poetry. And I love that. So I've been connected to this. I had this thing that was I could relate to these poems, and I could relate to the young poems that I remember from my childhood. The other ones, went, again, just right over my head, or at least I felt like they did. I don't think that I really gave them a chance because I assumed that they were too difficult for me. And I think a lot of that came about through probably my introduction to poetry, officially in school, was all about the rhyme and the meter and the rules and the, and it wasn't about the love. It wasn't about the feeling. And so I thought it was really interesting and beautiful and wonderful that in this book, this poetry book that Marlene put together for us, the part that talks about teaching of poetry is so beautiful. It's so perfect. It talks about, well, here are all these ways that a teacher, a really good teacher, can teach poetry. These are the ways that often we use to introduce poetry. But the author suggests that, well, that'll make you look good as a teacher, maybe, and you might really want to do that, but that's not really the best way to introduce poetry. Let the poets speak for themselves. They can probably introduce it better than you can. Or the message needs to be received fresh, fresh and new to the hearts of your children, so that they can decide, or your students, but for us, it's our children. Let them decide how they feel about it first. And it even suggested that rather than, like, so many times if we're teaching, don't we say, I pull out a book. Hold on, this one. I pull out a book and I say, okay, let me tell you about this. This is a lovely book of poetry. And these are all the poems that are, Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poems. Let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth Barrett Browning, where she was born, when she lived, what things were like, what her experiences were, what, maybe what her passions were or something. And that would be a meaningful, I'm sure my intent, would be pure as I'm thinking, oh, I'll help you to know this person better before I introduce some of her poems. Well, in this other book, it suggests read a poem, just read the poem, find one that you love that speaks to you and read that. And then let the student, let your child, let the person you're sharing with it respond naturally to it. Let them receive it however they will. And if they like it and they want to know more or learn more, then share about the poet, then share about the history or the time period or the whatever else it is that you thought was interesting about that. But first, let them feel it, let them receive it, in its purest form first. I thought that was really great. I think from our way of teaching our children what we're experiencing as we're, in the trenches doing this, that probably resonates with our, mama hearts. And we feel like, yeah, that's right. Okay, so I can't remember who said it. The best teachers will show you where to look, but won't tell you what to see. Yeah, Lindsay, that's beautiful. And so true. And I think we worry so much about, also about, like, we need to know more about the intelligence part of this. That's not the word I meant, intellectual part of this, and I was distracted because I made my chat fill up the whole screen. I couldn't see any of you. But we think, okay, we've got to learn more. We've got to know more. We've got to be experienced. What if I haven't taken a class in this? What if I don't really know this material? How am I going to teach it to my children? I think you've probably experienced that if you have something that you love, something that is dear to you, that's the best kind of a learning experience that you can share with your child, is you bring to them something that it doesn't even have to be something that you know much about. It can just be something that you have some wonder about. You found something outside in your yard that you've never seen before, a bug or a flower or a little bud or a seed or a something. And you bring that in and say, oh my goodness, what do you think this is? Isn't this amazing? I found this out in our yard. Let's explore this. Or something that you have a love of, and you bring that to share with them. Those are the things that generally, that's a better way of introducing something to your children, right? That's been my experience. How about you? Is that something that resonates with you? That's kind of a better way? Let's see, is it Jonah?
Jonna.
Jonah. Okay, Jonah, got it.
Sorry, it's different.
No, that's
Okay.
wonderful.
I think as I've been trying to teach my kids, I spent a lot of time planning like what devotionals we do and what poems, and trying to streamline everything, right? Like perfectly in sync with stories that match it, which is not bad, but I spent so much time doing that. And it wasn't really something I could keep up. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I because of necessity, my pregnancies are terrible. So we just go into survival mode. And so I just started sharing things that I liked. Like when I do my scripture study in the morning, whatever scripture stands out, that's the one I share with them for devotional with them later that day. And I just say, hey, I really love this, or let me tell you the story I read. And it was so interesting to watch how they changed the way that they listened. And they're little. My oldest just turned 10, but it's been so interesting because they say the same thing now. Oh, I have to share this poem with you. I just loved it, And I just think that principle of learning together and sharing what you really love is really the meat of the whole thing, I guess. So
yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love that comment, and I agree with you 100%. Okay, any other mom comments? Just don't want to miss anybody. Okay, so I want to share just a couple things from this book that I highlighted that I thought were lovely, just as a support for, yes, this really is how this will work best. In talking about this, how to introduce the poem. Okay, sorry. There's so much. It's like with every other book that I get from Marlene, I mark up all of these things and I think, oh, we just need to talk for hours and hours. Obviously, we can't do that. Okay, our first aim must be to make them feel, not to make them know, to make them love the beautiful thing, and then to deepen that love through understanding. So our first aim must be to make them feel, not to make them know, to make them love the beautiful thing, and then to deepen that love through understanding. Isn't that beautiful? They're talking about great poetry. And so the very secret, perhaps, of what is called their immortality, why these poems have been around forever and ever and ever, is that their main value lies in a process, not in a result. And I think in school, so many times it's the result that the teachers are focusing on, because that's what they're required to do, that you've got to be able to measure it, right? So they don't do the process so much. They don't get to do that. We do not understand a great poem till we have felt it through, and as far as possible, recreated in ourselves the emotions which it originally carried. Now, that goes right along with everything that, like, Lindsay Watkins said concerning the poems that she was reading that her mom had written, what Rachel was sharing about the family connection that they have with poetry. That makes sense. These principles make sense.
I had something.
Yeah. Hi, Ida.
Hi. So we had I had our Mothers of Influence group on Wednesday. We just do it once a month, but it's with my sisters and sisters-in-laws. Anyways, I was like racking my brain what to talk about, and then I was like, you know what, we should just talk about poetry and we can all share poems. And so when you posted your thing, I was like, that's funny. But so and then my mom ordered a bunch of books of the Well-Educated Heart books for all of my siblings. Like there's 11 of us, so I think she got my book of delights for like almost all of us, which was so cool. Anyway, so then she also got some of the bonus books, and she gave this one to me because she didn't realize that was for her. So I've been reading it. I was like, this is great, Mom. You want to come get it, just let me know. But it's the one about poetry, so I was reading some of the neat stuff in there. And then today I was listening to a podcast that Marlene did in January in 2018, January 2018, about the logos and I can't remember, rain something. Do you guys know? Is anybody familiar with that? Like, it talks about how there's like the words, the written word, right? The actual words that you can dissect and look at or whatever. And then there's the meaning behind the words, like the spirit of the words, right?
Oh, yeah,
And
she writes about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's in the books too. But I was just thinking about that and how cool it is, and then thinking about in poetry or in song, right? You don't have to tell your child, this is a sad song. You don't have to break down all the things for the song. They can just listen to it and hear that. And she said a lot of times, like, you don't need to break down and explain every detail about things that you share with your children. You just need to share it and let them feel it and understand it, And so when you were talking about that a little bit too, I was like, oh, that makes sense. It's just like in a song, really. When you read poetry, the message is really carried in the rhythm and beyond just what the words are, they can feel it. And so I think that, like, I've always loved poetry since I was a little kid, and I never really thought much about, but different things, right? But then music too. I love listening to music and how it affects your emotions and helps you feel different things and, whatever. So I think that's so, like, that really helped that click for me. Like, yeah, you don't have to explain it, because I get caught in that trap. Like, okay, do you understand what's going on here, kids? Like, let me just map it out for you, right? But they can feel it, and they really can, because they're more sensitive, I think, to the spirit of the words, the spirit of the message that's being shared. So
yeah,
just a thought.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And we're older, we're grown up, we've had experiences, we've had people tell us certain things are certain ways, and so we bring all of that to it, and they're fresh and new, and this is all, they're going to have this very wonderfully unique experience just for them, if we let them, if we don't get in the way of that.
And I think, Lori, if it's an inspired message, I think it's a living message. Yeah. So I know sometimes we talk about like scripture like that or other things, but I think that the message that we get from it is not always the same, right? Like, we can read it one time and it means one thing to us, and later on it inspires us in a different way. And that's, I think, part of the spirit of the message, that it can be applied to our lives at different times and in different circumstances, what we need to hear from it, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And that's our motivation, to become like a little child, so that our hearts are just as receptive and we can receive the messages we need at each time that we receive that material. It can teach us what we're supposed to learn from it. Yeah, I love that. I wanted to pause for a moment. Jocelyn Vance is here. Jocelyn from Venture with the Vances, if you're on Instagram and follow her. And I know that Jocelyn doesn't have a lot of time, so I just wanted to check in with her. She was going to maybe share just a little bit about Poetry Tea Time, which I know she does with her children. She shared some really great resources with me just via messaging the other day. So Jocelyn, are you close to your phone or computer or whatever you have going there?
Yes. Let me find a spot where I can talk.
Okay. I just didn't want to have see her disappear, and we missed her. So
Yeah. So I'm still not ready for the day. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to think what I shared.
it doesn't matter. What do you feel inspired to share right now?
Okay. But yeah, as sometimes we're more consistent than other times, but I just love the idea of the Poetry Tea Time, that just kind of making it kind of a fun experience for your kids. I know that, I don't know if a lot of you have heard of the Brave Writer of Julie Bogart. But I think that's kind of where a lot of moms got the idea. So I used to listen to her podcast a lot, and she just talks about how all growing up with her kids, she did this. She has a love for writing and for poetry and things. And so with her kids growing up, she always did this poetry tea time. And now that her kids are older, it's still a tradition. Her kids come back from college and will come and do this poetry tea time with her. And it's just kind of a fun way for them to sit around sharing poems and talking about poetry. And I think all of her kids love writing because she loves it. So I've never had like a deep love of poetry or of writing. I mean, I do enjoy writing, but I never had a deep love of poetry. And so I loved when I listened to that. I thought that would be one of the best ways that I think is just to fall in love with it, is just to kind of make it a fun experience for your family and make it something that you can enjoy together. And so yeah, we just have tried to do that, try to just do poetry tea time. We don't always have we never have tea actually. So, but just a way to sit around. I feel like food like brings everyone together, something special, like a special occasion, it brings everyone together. And so it's just kind of a fun way to bring everyone together and just to have poems. So I like to have different poems, different books, like kind of the ones that you've shared and things ready, so we can just pull them out and I might start reading them. And a lot of my kids are a little bit older. There's some older ones and younger ones, but my younger ones love the nursery rhymes, and then the older ones love they don't really enjoy poetry as much, but I like to read it to them and just kind of let them see, how they can feel about it. And so that I love that book, the Favorite Poems Old and New, I think it's called Favorite Poems Old and New. That one, I love that one. I like it's kind of separated by topics. And so if we kind of follow along with the rotation schedule of Marlene Peterson, then I like to find poems about like the historical poems that they have for the time periods that we're reading about. They're in that book. And there's also books and poems about the nature topics. So like if we're studying about birds, for the nature for that month, then I like to read these poems about birds. And there's a lot of really good poems, and they're just kind of divided by topics. So, and I think also Marlene's, in her book about poetry, she has a lot of her poems separated by topics. So that's kind of a fun way. But to begin with, I just think it's just fun just to open up a poetry book and just start reading them and just kind of start getting the feel for them. And then as you start enjoying it more and making it kind of a part of your homeschool and of your life, then you can just start finding, organizing it maybe a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and then it can become something that is part of your family culture.
Yeah.
Because you've done it together. Not because you're great at it, not because you do it all the time, but because you've experienced it together,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I loved about when Julie Bogart was sharing how her kids, even as they're grown, that they still come together and do that because it became a part of their family culture. So I just thought that's kind of my goal with homeschooling, and is just to make this family culture of learning and of experiencing different things together. So it becomes, as our kids get older, then they can come back and have those memories that we've done together as a family. So.
Yeah. And I think you moms will be so pleasantly surprised when you get to the other side of this, that even the things that you only did a couple of times here and there, those, your children will have fond memories of those things. You know, we feel like as a mom, I don't know why. Well, it's, you know, Satan loves to get in there and put his little messages, you know, and try to minimize our efforts. But every time we do something good with our children counts, every single time. And we get credit for that. I have a sister-in-law who shared, if she was on here today, I was going to have her share, but it's really a hard time for her. But she had this like personal revelation a number of years ago, and because she was feeling discouraged, and she kept just really focusing on the negatives. And she had this personal revelation experience where Heavenly Father showed her this timeline of her life. And it was all of, you know, all of her life on this timeline, and little different spots on the timeline were like magnified and in a big bubble up above that spot on the timeline. Does that make sense? So here, this particular event is in this big circle up here and magnified. And here's this other one and magnified. And just, you know, just throwing this question out there to you mamas, what experiences do you think were magnified? The good ones or the bad ones? Right? It's going to be the negative ones, the ones that we perceive as negatives, right? Our failures or whatever were the ones that were highlighted there. And the Spirit whispered this to her and just said, those spots that is Satan, and that is him magnifying those moments. And what does a magnifying glass do? It enlarges, makes something much larger, much bigger than it actually is, and it distorts. And that one experience for her, that for me, when she shared that with me at a moment that was really important for me to get that message, it was huge. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's wonderful to be able to have that perspective that when we are focusing on that negative, right? That's not us. And that's not Heavenly Father. You know, that's not the Spirit giving us that message. It's somebody who really wants to pull us down, who sees that we're making progress and we're doing some good work and doesn't want us to feel that way. So maybe you can keep that little timeline, you know, in that picture in your mind. And perhaps we can be really proactive and start highlighting some of those positives, you know, because if you sat down with your children and you had a moment that turned out to be great, you get to celebrate that moment. Every good, positive thing you do with your children is something you get to celebrate. And honestly, like I said, when you get to the other side of this, your kids remember so much of the good. Those are the things that they remember. Rachel's carrying her phone with her. Is that because you're gonna talk to us, or you just move into a different spot? I love that your babies follow you guys everywhere. Jocelyn is trying to get away from the noise, you know, the wonderful noise that families make. And everywhere she goes, the noise follows her. But that's, you know, that's why we have bathrooms. I believe that's, you know, probably the number one reason they brought them into the house instead of outside, because they could still be outside, right? But no, we have to have a place to hide.
One last thing I was going to say is, so when we started doing poetry tea time, because that was kind of something new, and with boys, they don't always love having like the idea of having a tea party. So I just try to find ways to make it fun. I think I sent you that post where I found we had a lot of dress up hats at home. Yeah. And so I just pulled out all of our dress up hats and put them on the table. And so I would say, if you wear one of these hats, because we have like a Mexican hat, a pirate hat, and different types of hats. And so if you wear a hat, try reading a poem in like a pirate voice, or a Mexican, you know, like with a Mexican accent. So just find ways to make it fun at the beginning. You know, it doesn't always have to be like that, but I think just those kinds of little things just kind of make it fun when you're kind of getting into the habit of it. And just find little things that you might have around that can make it kind of a fun little activity. Because when we started out, I didn't really understand too much about poetry, and we kind of did the good and the beautiful, the language arts, and she kind of talks about poetry, but I felt like that wasn't really teaching my kids to love it. And so that's what I really wanted to is with the poetry, is just to get them to enjoy it and to enjoy telling the poems and reciting them. So, and that's kind of the idea of poetry tea time, is just to let them learn to love it.
Exactly, exactly. And you set it up however you need to. And if you have boys and you need to have it be corn dogs, then that's what you do. You have poetry corn dog time or something. I don't know. But I wanted you to also share about what you shared with me that your sister, what your sister does with the blank bear books.
Okay. Yeah, we have the so I have a few, and then my sister, she lives in Idaho, but she got a bunch of the blank bear books, and she just keeps a little basket. She has like a little room, kind of like by her, like a little library, and she has a little basket with all the poetry books, and then right next to her basket, she has a basket of all the books, so her girls can just sit down and anyone that wants to, but mostly the girls do it, but they sit down and they can just look through it, and she just helps them. If they're little, she kind of helps them find a poem that they want to write, and she'll write it out for them, and then they'll illustrate it. Or as they get older, they can write it out and just have that own book that's kind of their own book that they can keep of their favorite poems. And I think that will be a really good memory for them as they get older, to have that little book of their favorite poems that they enjoyed. And when I go visit my sister in Idaho, and I love that her girls just pull out their poetry book and they bring it over and they show me all their favorite poems that they've compiled, and it's cute. And like they'll just tell me about the poem and how funny it was, like a funny part of this poem. So I think it's a fun idea to have all these. And I think she has a lot of the books by Caroline Kennedy. Have you seen those poetry books? Caroline Kennedy has those, and then a lot of the nursery rhyme books with really pretty illustrations, like the ones that you were showing on your Instagram channel. I think those are good for the kids to see the illustrations. That really helps them to get them engaged with the poetry.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. And I love the idea of the hats on the table. I think that's super fun, because I in one of my posts shared that my kids liked to recite their poems with funny accents or in a different voice or something.
Yeah.
That made it more fun to them. And I was thinking, Lindsay, when you see my kids next, Lindsay Bunting, you need to ask them. Stevie and Sarah, mostly, they're the ones that have them in the funniest voices. But anyway, they'll still recite in that voice. And recording them, that's another really good idea. And that's so easy today. I had to get out my video recorder thing and make sure I had a tape and a battery charged and whatever. But you guys just pull out your phones. You can record them reciting their poetry, and they love to watch that afterwards. You just kind of find what motivates your child, right, Jocelyn? Something that works for you.
Yeah, the recordings, the little kids, they love to, from the time they're about 3 or 4, they love to memorize the little nursery rhymes. And so it's really cute to go back and watch those videos of them. Even my husband grew up reciting poetry. His mom really loved it. And so he has videos or just a tape recording of him reciting poems when he was 3 or 4 years old, and they love to go back and listen to that. So I think those are really good memories for them to just go back and listen to little nursery rhymes. So with the little kids, I like to have them just choose a little nursery rhyme that they can practice memorizing, and we just practice it until they have it. And then when they have it, then it's kind of a fun celebration to record it and share it with dad and things like that.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And when I was thinking that I was so afraid of poetry and whatever, and it's funny because I have next to me stacks. So I have stacks. This is one. I have a whole shelf in my library that's all poetry. That's my poetry shelf. And I have these collections. Like, it's funny because Marlene will post, share some of her favorites that she says, see if you can try to get a hold of these. I go in my library and whoops, what do you know? There they are on the shelf. Some of them I've used, some of them I haven't. I bought a bunch of Shel Silverstein because those silly poems are fun. Your kids love those in the beginning, in those early years, and then these. But I have all these books of poetry. So why do I think that I'm afraid of poetry? I love these books. I love a lot of the poems that are in these books. But for some reason, the idea of teaching it is scary. But look what we're talking about. We're talking about just experiencing it with our children, not telling them any great intellectual thing about it, just experiencing it with our children and letting them experience it and letting them feel what they feel about it. So at this point, any comments from you mamas about this, where we are to this point? Just checking all of you to see. Some of you I know. Jocelyn, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that.
I just want to jump on real quick.
Yeah.
I'm loving all these ideas, and I love that you say it's good even if we just do it one time, because people are reminding me, oh wait, we did that one time and I totally forgot about it. Oh yeah, that's right, they did draw it out one time. That was really fun. So I'm like remembering all these things we did one time.
Oh yeah, you get credit. You get credit for that.
Yeah.
Even if nobody else gives it to you, you can give it to yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, like I'm looking at my poetry shelf right now as you talked about it, and I've over the years, like kids that are reluctant to do the poetry, I've tried to find at like our secondhand bookstore, the library book sales and stuff like that, poetry books on things that they're interested in. So finding it where it relates to them. So I have like a baseball poetry book called Extra Innings, and my baseball guy loves that one. So trying to find poems that relate to them too has helped over the years.
I love that. That's such a good idea. That's really fun, Lindsay, because it has to speak to them. You know, they've got to connect to it somehow on some level. And as the mom, you can even, you know, be prayerful about that and find what works for your child. But so in this book, it continues on and it says that you really, as the teacher, you know, the one that's introducing these to them, that you really, it says the teacher must choose his poem from his own anthology. And what does Marlene tell us we need to do? Create our own anthology of poems. So as we as mamas go through the poems that we have, and I'm starting with the nursery rhymes, you know, because those I understand mostly, you know, I think. But go start there and find ones that you love, poems that are silly or funny or sweet or touching or anything. And you find a pretty book or just a plain journal or something like that, and you start writing in that book the poems that speak to you. And in that way, you're creating your own anthology of poetry. And that's what poetry should be. It should mean something. So you can have these beautiful books that have, I mean, that are gorgeous. I got this one for Christmas. One of my girls gave it to me, and it's from like 1860 something, this Browning, Mrs. Browning's, you know, poetry. But then there are beautiful poems in here. But how wonderful to take the ones that I love the most from this book and that book and those books and put it all in a book that's my favorite. And what does that teach your children? You know, what wonderful example is that for your children? Oh, Christine, an anthology. It's a collection. What does anthology actually mean though? I don't actually know that. Lindsay's gonna look it up for me. But it's a collection of poems. Like you'll find books that are collections of somebody has curated them. Lindsay, what did it say?
It actually said a published collection of poems or other pieces of writing.
Okay, so ours won't be published necessarily, but it will be our own collection of poems. So thank you for doing that for me. And thank you for asking the question, Christine, because I love that we ask questions. We ask questions. We want to find out. I was looking up, I remember years ago, one of the poems that I shared on Instagram is The Land of Counterpane. I don't know how many of you got to see those Instagram posts, but I shared the poem and then a couple of the different illustrations, different illustrators illustrating that poem. And The Land of Counterpane it's about a boy who's sick in bed and his adventures during the day as he plays with his toys on the bedspread, you know, and he has hills, you know, and valleys or ocean waves, you know, for his ships or whatever. But his bedspread becomes this land where his toys play while he's sick in bed. And counterpane, the word counterpane is an English word, and it means a coverlet or a quilt, you know, a bedspread, you know, on the bed. So the land of counterpane. So it's ask questions, find out. If you find words that you don't know what the meaning is, find out. But unlike with stories, a lot of times with stories, I will share the meanings of some of the words ahead of time. But with poetry, it says, no, don't do that. Just read the poem. Read the poem. Share the poem that you love with your children and let them just experience it. And so I like that. And you don't have to have anything wise or intellectual to say about the poem. A poem can stand on its own. Do you love that? I love that. I don't have to be brilliant and say some really interesting thing about it. I can just share the poem and say, isn't that neat? Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that funny? You know, whatever. And then we can go on. And they have just experience that. They have heard a beautiful poem. So, oh, smart Lindsay Watkins. Yeah, you can also have the word pronounced for you. I love that. I love that. Also, I was reading one of my favorite books, or a couple of my favorite books are A Girl of the Limberlost and Freckles. Those are Jean Stratton Porter books. But there are so many creatures, birds and things that I'm not familiar with that are in those books, because it has a lot to do about nature, being out in nature. And so on my phone, I'll go and I'll look up the bird or whatever the thing is that it, he talks about being terrified of this sound, and then learning what the sound was, learning it was this bird, and the call was just so creepy, so eerie or something like that. I'm sure he didn't use the word creepy, but so I look it up on my phone and I look up that bird and the call, and then I can play it and I can hear it, and I think, oh yeah, that would be kind of scary to be walking along and hearing that sound. So do that with your kids, get into the thing and explore it with them. Your excitement and curiosity is something that will help fuel theirs. When they see you collecting, when they see you reading, when they see you wondering about, when they see you being moved by things, that kind of shows them, even if they don't respond in the moment, they have put that away in their heart. That's an experience that they've had as they've watched their mama respond to things, watch how she values, what she values in her life. All those things are little lessons that you're sharing with them. Just like the way that you treat other people, that's a lesson they're putting away, just everything. Those are all lessons. Okay, so time for poetry. Did you bring a poem? Do you want to share a poem that you brought? I would love to hear what you have to share. And you're getting the idea that this doesn't have to be scary or hard or anything. And you also don't have to worry about how they respond, because in the beginning, they might not really know how to respond, and that's okay. That's okay. You are bringing them to the feast. You are bringing them to the table and saying, look at all these wonderful, beautiful things that are here. That's your job. You're doing that. And you don't have to worry so much about their response right now.
So I was gonna see if my daughter will share a poem.
Oh, we would love it. We would absolutely love it. You don't have to be worried, because we're all just moms.
Okay. So do you want to try? I guess she doesn't want to.
That's okay. That's okay. Maybe she'll decide later if she wants to. We would love to hear from you, sweetheart.
Do you want to try sharing it? You can try it if you want. If not, it's okay. If I can find, I tried to memorize the poem, the one by Louisa May Alcott of A Little Kingdom I Possess.
Yes.
But I haven't, I don't have it all the way memorized. So do you want to share it, Sophie? Or not? Your poem? Or you don't want to? It's okay.
And it's always okay to have a cheat sheet, because they talk about that you want to get the poem, you want to share that message the way it was written. I love memorizing them. I think that's a wonderful thing too. But if I'm in front of people, I get nervous and I forget. So do you think you want to share with us, sweetheart? What is your name?
Sophie.
Sophie. It's nice to meet you, Sophie. How old are you, sweetie?
8.
8 years old. Oh, that's an important age. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sophie, would you feel better if we turned off our videos so you didn't see our faces, or do you like seeing our faces? Oh, did we lost Jocelyn, huh? We lost her. We'll see if she comes back. What a cute little girl. You can tell she's like, oh, I really want to, but I don't know. All right. Bunting kiddos, do you guys want to share a poem? Are there poems yes, and you will share them with us?
They kept coming in here going, Mom, is it time to do it yet? Is it time to do it yet?
Wonderful.
So
Okay, so who's gonna go first?
I think we're all gonna do it at the same time.
Oh, okay. All right, and we've got Max and Ruby.
Aren't you, Ruby? I am.
And Ruby.
Anybody else? Just the two of you?
Lincoln doesn't have a shirt on, so he's
Does Lincoln ever have a shirt on?
Not
That's my
really,
question. Does Lincoln ever have a shirt on?
Talking with Henry.
No.
He's playing with this puppet Henry.
Oh, that's okay. Okay,
They're
what's the
puppet
name?
shows.
What's the name of the poem that you guys are going to share?
Good morning, Mary. Sunshine.
Good morning, Mary Sunshine.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, ready? Good
Morning, Mary Sunshine. How did you wake so soon? You scared the little stars away and driven away the moon. I saw you go to sleep last night before I stopped my praying. How did you get way over there and where have you been staying? I never go to sleep, big child. They go all around to see my little children of the east that rise and watch for me. I awaken all the birds and bees that
And flowers
on the way, especially the little child that stayed out late to play.
That was
Good
so
job.
good, you guys. Good job. And that's a longish one.
I
Wonderful.
know. I was so surprised when these little ones memorized the long one. I thought they'll just do like the first couple of, is it called a stanza or something? And then the older ones will do the whole thing, but they did it.
Good job. That was really great, guys. Thank you for sharing with us.
Okay.
I'm really glad that you did that. Sorry it took so long to get to that part. Okay, who else wants to share a poem with us this morning?
I'll share
Good.
one.
Okay, good.
It's not memorized, but I shared this with my sisters the other day. So I have this book that I've had for like, I don't know, 10 years. It's called Poems. If you can see, it's probably backwards. Poems that lift the soul, a treasury of faith and inspiration. It's by, I mean, it's in like by topic too, organized by topic, which is fun. So this one is in the section for courage, and it's called Right Must Win. From On the Field. I'm not sure what that is, but it says, "Oh, it is hard to work for God, to rise and take his part upon this battlefield of earth and not sometimes lose heart. He hides himself so wondrously as though there were no God. He is least seen when all the powers of ill are most abroad. Or he deserts us at the hour the fight is all but lost, and seems to leave us to ourselves just when we need him most. Ill masters good, good seems to change to ill with greatest ease, and worst of all, the good with good is at cross purposes. It is not so, but so it looks, and we lose courage then, and doubts will come if God hath kept his promises to men. Workmen of God, oh, lose not heart, but learn what God is like, and in the darkest battlefield thou shalt know where to strike. Thrice blessed is he to whom is given the instinct that can tell that God is on the field when he is most invisible. Blessed, too, is he who can divine where real right doth lie, and dares to take the side that seems wrong to man's blindfolded eye. Muse on his justice, downcast soul. Muse and take better heart. Back with thine angel to the field, and bravely do thy part. For right is right, since God is God, and right the day must win. To doubt would be disloyalty, to falter would be sin." Love that
That
one.
is beautiful. What's the name of that again, Ida?
It's called Right Must Win from On the Field. I don't know, like On the Field must be like a collection of
Battle.
poetry.
Yeah.
And it's by Frederick William Faber, Faber.
That's beautiful.
I loved it, especially the last stanza. Really, just right is right.
Right is right
God is
because
God.
God is God. Right. For God is God. That's beautiful. Very powerful and very emotional in these times.
Right? Take courage.
Yes. Right. I love it. Okay. Other mamas?
I'll share one of my mom's.
Good.
It's simple. It's called Unfinished Chores. It says, "I glanced out the window at the setting sun with a feeling of panic of things still undone. As I wash the dishes, they continue to grow in a sink full of suds that looks like snow. Dirty clothes all piled up on the floor. I swear I washed that shirt just a little while ago. Windows are all dirty, fingerprints on the walls. Wish the girls would learn to pick up their dolls." That part was not me. Clothes needing folding up, a job never ending. Dust on my sewing machine. Can't find time to do the mending. Kids running here and there, ball games, concerts, and so on. Sometimes I think I'll be glad when they are all gone. Then I think of the quiet, everything neat and put away. Won't hear any children's laughter. Things the same day after day. It's then I realized that they are only ours to borrow. So I'm going with my kids tonight. The work can wait till tomorrow.
That's so beautiful. And those are the ones that, really affect the mama hearts, right? Rachel, were you going to share something, or your children?
They do want to share their poems that they have been working on.
Good. I'm glad.
We pick our poems out of Marlene's poetry book, and so they've both been working on learning theirs. So
Wonderful.
they're going to try to.
Oh, that's great. Rachel, remind me, what's your last name, sweetie?
Anderson.
Anderson. Okay. Anderson. And I get to see your cute little kids' faces. I love when they come and show themselves. But yeah, I love it. So we're anxious to hear what they have to share. What are they going to share with us?
My Mother's Secrets by Sarah Hale. My mother's
I have learned.
I have learned my lesson, and Mother said she would give me a kiss when I went to bed. I do not want ice cream.
I don't want sugar plums.
I do not want sugar plums, ice cream, and cake. They make my mind dull, my head too ache. My mother shall kiss me my best reward. To gain her smile, I will study hard.
When I'm good.
And when I'm good, Mother said she would give me a kiss when I went to bed.
I like that one. That was beautiful. Good job. What's your name, sweetie?
Rhea.
Rhea?
Laura.
Laura. How did I miss that? Laura. Laura, thank you. That was beautiful.
Laura Anderson.
I love it. And mamas, you're getting a request to put your poems, the ones that we are reading on here or that your children are reciting, put them in the chat afterwards so that we can look up those poems and we can learn them too.
Okay, and then Amelia, do you want yours?
I found it. Mr. Nobody. Author unknown. I know a funny little man, as quiet as a mouse, who does the mischief that's done in everybody's house. There's no one that ever sees his face, and yet we all agree that every plate we break was cracked by Mr. Nobody. It is he who tears our books, who leaves the door ajar. He pulls the buttons from our shirts and scatters pins afar. The squeaking door will always squeak, for prithee don't you see? We leave the oiling to be done by Mr. Nobody. He puts steel put upon the fire that kettles cannot boil. His feet are the feet that bring in mud and all the carpet soil, and papers are mislaid. Who had them last, there's no one that tosses them about, but Mr. Nobody. The finger marks upon the door by none of us are made. We never leave the blinds unclosed to let the curtains fade. The ink we never spill. The boots that are lying around, you see, are not our boots. They all belong to Mr. Nobody.
Good job. Very good job. We grew up with Mr. Nobody in our house too.
Well, he leaves our door ajar too.
Does he? Now, did your mom say, are you Amelia?
Yep.
Amelia, thank you, sweetie, for sharing. That was great. I like that one too. Good job. Any more from the Anderson household?
So mine, I don't have it memorized. So I'm just going to tell you the title. So when I was in high school, I took a poetry class and we had to find our poems and stuff. And the one that I remember doing is Nobody Lived in a Pretty How Town by E.E. Cummings. And when I was in college, I still loved the poem. And I took a sign language class and I had to sign something for one of my finals. And that was the poem that I signed. And so I was trying to tell my girls about it. And I was like, maybe I will relearn to sign it, but we are not that good yet. So.
No, that's wonderful though. And when I was a girl, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sweetie. Say that again.
We need to learn our sign language. But we learned this one. I want candy, please. Thank you.
Good job.
Our grandpa.
That's an important one to learn.
Yes. He lives in Lovell and he loves giving us candy. Hey, you're gummy. You know what this one is.
So I remember when I was a girl, I just thought it was so cool that E.E. Cummings was, you know, the lowercase E.E. I just thought that was, I don't know. I thought it was fun and creative, you know.
Who he is, because there are not a lot of people I find that know him.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm old, so I've had more years. Okay, so Rachel's gonna do nobody lived in a what town?
in a pretty how town.
Pretty how?
Yep.
Okay.
But I'm not reciting it because I don't have it memorized.
It's fine. Reading it is fun, is just wonderful.
I don't know if I can pull it up on my phone at the same time. I don't think I can do it on my phone at the same time.
So you want to find another way to pull it up?
Maybe if I can put it in the thing, I will, but I don't have another way to pull it up.
Okay, we'll see. Or if somebody else knows how to pull it up and throw it in the chat. Ida's got it. Ida's our technical girl. So we'll do that for you, Rachel. We'll put it in the chat and then you can pull up the chat and read it from there. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, and then Linnell, I'm glad to have you back. It's good to see your face again. Did you have a poem that you wanted to share, or your kiddos?
Yes. My son memorized 2 this week. He just woke up from a nap though, so I don't know if he will be willing. I told him I could do 1 and he could do 1.
Right, he may need transition time. Totally understand that.
Maybe I'll start with 1. This is a poem that I learned as a little girl. My mom read this to me and I had forgotten about it. And then I discovered it when I bought my first My Book House set. And I was so excited to find it. So it was one of the first ones I taught my son. So it's called My Little Turtle. There was a little turtle who lived in a box. He swam in a puddle and climbed on the rocks. He snapped at a mosquito. He snapped at the flea. He snapped at the minnow and he snapped at me. He caught the mosquito. He caught the flea. He caught the minnow, but he didn't catch me.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. I know that one. That's fun.
I like
Well,
the rhyme
that's
of that.
fun that your mom learned My Little Turtle and taught it to you. Do you have a poem that you want to share with us? What's your son's name?
Benji.
Benji. We'd love to hear your poem when you're ready to do it.
And the one he worked on was the one that you posted, Dirt on My Shirt.
Yes.
And he especially liked that one since we've been going outside every day. I can help you, Benji. Come. I'll help you get started.
That's a funny one too, Benji.
He even let me record it. So I have a recording of him, but maybe I'll share one more. And then if he doesn't want to, then we can just move on to someone else. But
Sure.
This is a poem I wrote yesterday. I wrote it because it was a rough day and I was really frustrated and poetry was on my mind and the words just started to come to me at the beginning and then I had to sit down and work on a little more, but I want to share that. And it's very similar to one that was already read. So here it is. Little hands, tiny feet, so many messes and stains on the seat. Nonstop crying, so much noise, fighting and screaming, high energy boys. Scissors and tape, paper galore, left on the table or strewn on the floor. Tummies are hungry. Can I have a snack? Now it is lunchtime, but soon they'll be back. With cooking and cleaning and planning to do, my day with the children was quite like the zoo. But then out of nowhere, a tiny, sweet voice, sorry. Mama, it's my baby. I'm faced with a choice. To look at the bad, the hard, and the wrong, or focus on beauty and sing a new song. This is my life. I love where I'm at. The chaos, the struggles, it's more than just that. Their hearts are so big, their minds are so bright, their spirits are tender. They're such a delight. I may not be perfect. I'm definitely not, but today I'm grateful for all that I've got.
That one's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. My goodness, make all the mamas
welcome.
tear up.
Thanks for letting me share.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Will you put it in the chat?
Sure.
And Rachel, will you put your girls and your poem in the, or I mean, your girls' poem in the chat? And Jocelyn, is Sophie ready now? And we'll come back to you, Benji.
Get it. Yes, sorry. I'm gonna get my phone. My phone died, so
Yeah.
we were about to say something, and then my phone just died.
Oh, she was all ready. Okay, Sophie, now we get to hear from you. This is so much fun getting to hear from all the children. This is wonderful. I'm really impressed with all of you.
She's gonna share a nursery rhyme that she memorized a few years ago, but they still love it. So she's gonna share.
Wonderful.
Okay.
This is called Little Boy Blue. Little Boy Blue blowed his horn. Can blow his horn. Sheep's in the meadow, cows in the horn. Where's the little boy that looks after sheep? Under the haystack, fast asleep.
Good job. That was awesome. Really good job, Sophie. And that's brave to recite it in front of a bunch of people that you don't know. So good job. You can add that now to the list of things that you've done. That's awesome. Thank you for being brave, sweetie.
So here's my poem that I really like. It's the A Little Kingdom I Possess from Louisa May Alcott. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, I'd love it. Yeah.
Okay, it says, a little kingdom I possess where thoughts and feelings dwell, and very, very hard I find the task of governing it well. For passion tempts and troubles me, a wayward will misleads, and selfishness its shadow casts on all my will and deeds. How can I learn to rule myself, to be the child I should, honest and brave, nor ever tire of trying to be good? How can I keep a sunny soul to shine along life's way? How can I tune my little heart to sweetly sing all day? Dear Father, help me with the love that casteth out my fear. Teach me to lean on thee and feel that thou art very near, that no temptation is unseen, no childish grief too small, since thou with patience infinite dost soothe and comfort all. I do not ask for any crown, but that which all may win, nor try to conquer any world except the one within. Be thou my guide until I find, led by a tender hand, the happy kingdom in myself, and dare to take command. So I love that one.
It is beautiful. That one is such a pretty, just a wonderful, beautiful picture it presents, you know. No surprise that she can paint a picture, you know, in just a few words, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other poems? Any other moms want to share? I have one that just came up the other day. I was going to let Rachel share it if she was able to come on this morning, but gosh, are you moms so impressed with what Rachel Sorensen Stevens posted about how she does Well-Educated Heart? The video she shared with it was on Well-Educated Heart, but it's on YouTube. She has a channel, it's Rachel Stevens, and she just goes through kind of what she does for the month, her preparation, how she uses Well-Educated Heart, and how she kind of sets that up. And for moms who are new to it and trying to figure out what does this look like, sometimes even though you might not do exactly the same thing, you see what someone else has done, how they do it, and it kind of helps you go, oh, okay, I see, I know how that could work for me. No, so she posted a video about that, but she also posted a poem, and I'm trying to remember those of you who I don't think she said a story about it, but it's called A Wasted Hour. So some of you might have seen that, might have even commented on it. I don't remember, but I'm going to read this one to you. I wasted an hour one morning beside a mountain stream. I seized a cloud from the sky above and fashioned myself a dream. In the hush of the early twilight, far from the haunts of men, I wasted a summer evening and fashioned my dream again. Wasted? Perhaps folks say so who never have walked with God when lanes are dotted with flowers or yellow with goldenrod. But I have found strength for my labors in that one short evening hour. I have found joy and contentment. I have found peace and power. My dreaming has left me a treasure, a hope that is strong and true. From wasted hours, I have built my life and my faith anew. And I liked that because I love the idea, you know, that there are no wasted hours if you're spending them like that. Anyway, I liked that one. I liked the sound of it. But I did bring my book that I told you is my favorite of my books that I have. It's because I love these drawings the best. They have that old vintagey kind of a feel, and I think they're sweet. And I guess I really like Robert Louis Stevenson. I don't like his books so much, but I like his nursery rhymes. The books I found one time, an article that said that he wrote during the time when you were paid by the word. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. That's why there are so many words trying to get through to what happens next in the story. Okay, I get it. I can understand that. Okay, so for one, any of them that have a picture, oopsie, of a child in a tree, that's going to get me because that's my thing. So that's why I love the swing, the one that I posted on Instagram. And wasn't that fun to see how many different pictures are listed there to go along with that one poem? I just love that. I love it. I love it. And I love that you're continuing to add your poems here. I appreciate that because that I'll put into the email, which I'm so bad at. Okay, so this one is called Foreign Lands. Up into the cherry tree, who should climb but little me? I held the trunk with both my hands and looked abroad on foreign lands. I saw the next door garden lie, adorned with flowers before my eye, and many pleasant places more that I had never seen before. I saw the dimpling river pass and be the sky's blue looking glass. The dusty roads go up and down with people tramping into town. If I could find a higher tree, farther and farther I should see, to where the grown-up river slips into the sea among the ships, to where the roads on either hand lead onward into fairyland, where all the children dine at 5 and all the playthings come alive. It's just a silly little poem, but I like it. I love anything that gets into the mind of a child, with that just imagination, So you're up in the tree and you're imagining whatever it is you're imagining about what you see. So I love that. I'm sorry. Also, one of the points I wanted to make about, Benji, are you ready?
Sure.
Awesome. Great. Okay, we're ready to hear you.
There's dirt on my shirt and leaves on my hair. There's mud on my boots, but I don't really care. Playing outside, it's so much fun to breathe the clean air and feel the warm sun. To stomp on a puddle or climb a big tree makes me quite happy. Just look and you'll see.
Good job. That was wonderful. Benji, thank you for sharing that. That was really great. Do you like to stomp in puddles?
Sure.
Me too. I always liked that. I always thought that was fun. Thanks for sharing. And Rachel, did you find any way to get that poem? I know Ida tried, and we're just limited with the amount of space in chat. She's busy trying to put her other poems in there. Here I am asking you to do a million things at once. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So, anyone lived in a pretty how town with up so floating many bells down. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. He sang his didn't, he danced his did. Women and men, both little and small, cared for anyone, not at all. They sowed their isn't, they reaped their same. Sun, moon, stars, rain. Children guessed, but only a few, and down they forgot as up they grew. Autumn, winter, spring, summer, and no one loved him more by more. When by now, and tree by leaf, she laughed his joy, she cried his grief. Bird by snow and stir by still, anyone's any was all to her. Someone's married their everyone's, laughed their cryings and did their dance. Sleep, wake, hope, and then They said their nevers, they slept their dream. Stars, rain, sun, moon, and only the snow can begin to explain how children are apt to forget to remember, with up so floating many bells down. One day anyone died, I guess, and no one stooped to kiss his face. Busy folks buried them side by side, little by little and was by was. All by all and deep by deep and more by more. They dreamed their sleep. No one and anyone, earth by April, wish by spirit, and if by yes. Women and men, both dong and ding, summer, autumn, winter, spring, reaped their sowing, and winter came, sun, moon, stars, rain.
Thank you. Well, that's a lot of opposites in there.
Yeah.
That's for me, like that's like I'm always on the most basic level, you know, but I like the picture that paints too. It's very interesting. That makes me want to look that one up and read it and see, you know, all of those words in print and try to figure out what is being said. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And it's not fun because then you get new poems brought to your attention that you didn't know of before. That's the beauty of sharing with other people the things that we're learning. I just love this. I love having a community of moms where we can share these things. Okay, so any questions about poetry? Any questions about where to go to get them, or any other ideas or thoughts or inspiration or anything?
So I have a thought.
Yeah.
When I was in middle school, we had to do a Christmas concert, and we did, don't quote me because I can't remember, but one of the Christmas songs, I remember it said the word gay in it, meaning they were happy, right?
Yeah.
And our music teacher told us that we couldn't sing that word. We had to use a different word. And it always really bothered me because it was like, well, we know what they mean.
Right.
But she said that we weren't mature enough to handle it. And so she wouldn't let us sing the right word in this song. And so like doing these older poems with my girls, like Mr. Nobody, my girls had several questions about what the curtains were or something.
Yeah.
And letting something soil because they didn't know.
Right.
And so I have learned that looking up the words, it's better to use like older dictionaries that give the correct definition of what they mean. Because then you can truly get the meaning, and it's not something crude or whatever that we have changed the words to in this generation of ruining beautiful words.
I really like Mr. Nobody because it was super funny, and I think I remember doing it in kindergarten where it had a picture or a painting or something in it. So I really like Mr. Nobody.
I'm glad you shared why you like it, because that's important too. I think I shared, I know that I shared with some of my friends that sometimes it's fun to take a poem that you really like and then make your own picture to go with it. So, because then you become an illustrator. So you can do that. You could take a piece of paper and make a picture to go with Mr. Nobody. And now you could have the poem, Mr. Nobody by, I don't remember who that one's by. And then you could say illustrated by, is it Amelia, right? Mm-hmm. Illustrated by Amelia Anderson. That'd be pretty cool.
Then you could make your own poetry book.
I love to paint, but
well, there you go. You could paint a picture.
Yeah, but Mr. Nobody didn't have an author. It was off.
It was unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes sense, kind of, huh? Maybe Mr. Nobody wrote it.
Nobody knew who the author was that wrote Mr. Nobody.
I think that's very fitting. I like that. Well, I love that you have shared. Does anybody have anything else that they want to share Yeah, the 1828 dictionary is online. So that's where I go every time. If I want to look up a word, I go to the 1828 dictionary. I want to know what the word meant, not what people have changed it to mean today. I don't go for any of that. So, and I love to look that up anyway, just to see what was the original intent. You know, what did this word mean back then? That's the thing that helps you to complete the story, right? So we're losing mamas. I know it's because we're going on a little bit later, and we are trying to keep it. Oh, look at all your blocks. That's awesome, Benji. We are trying to make it a little shorter just so moms have the time to come on, know that they can participate, and also so it's not too long to watch afterwards. Some of those recordings are kind of lengthy, but people are watching them. And someone messaged me on Facebook the other day and said, I always watch the recording. Thank you so much. You know, so that's how some of the moms are getting it. They're never here with us, so we don't know who they are, but they're watching the videos. And so they're getting to have this support and the help and the encouragement, which all of you are giving. And I thank you for that. I thank you for your participation. Those of you who are here, coming on. Oh, wonderful. Lindsay, your non-member friend. And hopefully, you know, we use a lot of language that is, you know, kind of specific to us, but I don't believe that it leaves anybody out. I think, you know, Jenny was so comfortable talking with us last Friday in our meeting. I hope that people learn we're all Christian moms. You know, that's the connection. And that's wonderful. Are we including all those poems here? We want to make sure we get the names and the names and of the poems and authors if you know them. So just looking to see, did I miss anything? I love that you put the poems in here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, so funny, so cute. So my daughter, Sarah, she's the one that came on episode 14. If you have friends who have older kids and they're worried about college and what comes next and everything, have them watch episode number 14. Sarah, the one that she did was so good. I think if I had been watching, oh, wow, you wrote that, Linnell? That's beautiful. Wow, I'm so impressed. That's amazing. Sorry, got distracted. I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, what was I saying?
You were telling them to watch the one with Sarah if they have older
kids. Oh yeah, thanks. I'm sorry. So Sarah was, for a little while, she had a job working with two kids who were doing virtual school, and their parents both had to work. And so they hired Sarah to come and do school with these kids. Well, for the week before school started, Sarah had to be there, and she just did the stuff that she does. So she comes and she does different activities with them, all these really cool, fun things. The things that moms always wish they could do, but they are moms, and so they can't. But Sarah's a young adult and can totally do all the cool things. But one of the things she did was bring Shel Silverstein and a book, and I can't remember which one, but she brought a book and she introduced a poem to them. And these are kids who have not had that exposure in their life at all. I mean, great mom, great dad, but just this kind of fun, just silly activities, or all of the art and all of the things, didn't have that kind of experience. And so she thought, oh, I don't know if they're even going to sit still for this. But 3 days, those kids had that poem memorized. You know, they loved it. They thought it was so much fun. And so they memorized the poem and they wanted more. And then she started reading Mary Poppins. In the beginning, the girl was interested. The boy was like running around doing stuff, you know, and Sarah would just keep reading. And she reads in a really, you know, fun, and, you know, she's got a lot of emphasis in her voice and all that. And she's telling the story and making it fun. And, you know, by the next afternoon, like halfway in the story, the boy like comes over a little closer and closer and closer. Then he's in her lap, you know, and then they end up reading the whole story, because then once school starts, they hurry and get their schoolwork done so they can have time with Miss Sarah. And so then they do the other Miss Sarah kinds of activities in between school. Well, they just fell in love with poetry and with Mary Poppins and this whole different kind of a life. Music, she introduced them to classical music pieces and things like that. Children want that. Their hearts are receptive to all those things. So don't be afraid. Don't worry about the fact that maybe you aren't as familiar. Maybe you don't know these things, don't have the intellectual facts and information to be able to share with them. They don't want that. They just want to be introduced to these beautiful things. I mean, they don't necessarily know it, but their hearts are ready to receive that. We're teaching them in this heart way rather than the mind way. We don't have to know all of that extra stuff to support it. We just are going to bring them to the feast and let them, let them sup, right? And find what is beautiful to them. And that helps them to then start discovering things about themselves, gain confidence about themselves. One of the things the book said was have confidence in your students. So have confidence in your children to be able to pull out good things from what you're putting in front of them. They are capable of a lot more than often we give them credit for. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been a good introduction and discussion about poetry. I've loved that you came prepared and you shared. Thank you for doing that. And for those of you who don't do that, don't worry, that's fine. It's wonderful just to be here and to be able to hear the discussions and see these other moms and know and kind of maybe have it validated for you again, have yourself validated, what you're doing validated, I think that's a good thing. It's good for moms to connect and be able to be not in competition with one another, but supporting and encouraging one another. I remember years ago having a young mom talk to me about being so discouraged because she felt inadequate as a mom because of what the other moms around her were doing. And I thought, oh, no, sweetie, that's not meant to discourage you. Oh, it broke my heart that she felt discouraged by that. But then I thought, well, Lori, you know that feeling. You felt that before too, because you're kind of measuring yourself against what you see around you. Instead of doing probably more what Heavenly Father wants us to do, which is to see what's happening around us and think, wow, that's great. That's wonderful that she does that. And that comes naturally to her. That's so great. I wonder if there's something she could help me learn, and then knowing that if she's got something like that, then I've got something like that too. Maybe I just am not seeing it in myself. Did you see the poem that I don't even know if it wasn't necessarily a poem, but I'm trying to figure out Instagram stories, and I don't think I really have it figured out quite yet, but I did post something on there and I think it's gone. Did you see the thing that talked about what the impact that you had on somebody else's day in a bunch of small ways? That's really, who put that? I think it might have been 1,000 hours. It might have been Ginny. Hang on. I just thought it was really great. And I thought that it was a good reminder for moms to, okay, bye, Ida. I'm sorry, sweetie. Good to see you. No, it must have been Jocelyn. And she's gone too. I will put it for all of you who are jumping off because you got to go and because I'm taking forever to find this. I will put it in the email. I have made a challenge for myself to be better about those emails. I just don't know if you guys look at them, so that's why. Oh no, I can't find it. Oh well, it was a thing that just talked about, today somebody's reading a book that you recommended. Today somebody is listening to a piece of music and it's touching their heart because you shared it with them, or it was just like these little ways that you are making a difference. You are having an impact on people around you. So don't, you give yourself credit for that, for the good things that you're doing every day in your life. And if we do one good thing, like I said, give yourself credit for it. We are really making a difference in the world by trying to make the world a little better, trying to bring a little more beauty, a little more softness, those are good things. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to, I know Lindsay Watkins shared the Pablo Picasso exhibit. Oh, wonderful. It's coming to Nashville, February to May. This is the only stop in the USA they are making. I told my 10-year-old about it. She's learned a little about him and she's so excited about going. Yes, even just a little exposure can create a fire. Absolutely. That is so true and so cool. Isn't that fun to watch her be excited about that? I love that. Learning from each other, helping each other along our way, lifting each other and helping to straighten each other's crowns. Yes, yes, yes. That's from Christine. Thank you, Christine. I love that. I've always liked that idea. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire, by Yeats. Wonderful. Okay, you ladies are wonderful. I hope you feel kind of uplifted. I hope you feel encouraged. I hope you feel like you're doing a great job, because you are. You really are. And I love that your babies are on here with you. I just think that's great. And you're all babies. Even though you're grown up and big and everything, you're all babies to me. Just beautiful, wonderful children. So I love seeing that. Okay, so have a beautiful weekend. Enjoy it. Find more poetry. Find more out in nature. Get outside. Follow Jenny's lead and get outside. Spend some time out in nature. These things are positive things that will bless your family. So in so many ways. So the little things are doing it. Just don't worry about all those other bigger things that take more time and that are more involved, unless you feel inspired to do it. Just take the time for the little things and be present with your kids. That's what's going to matter most. Rachel, about the emails, just send me your email right there, and I'll add you to it. Make sure that you're on there. Mamas, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all of your comments and everything. Have a wonderful weekend.